Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the June Finance Committee meeting. We have the complete committee here, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Councilmember McIntosh, Taylor, and myself. We also have a complete complement, the other four members of the City Council here, as well as the mayor. Thank everybody for joining us today. Let me do a few announcements before we begin. Due to the Safer at Home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. When there's a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. A committee member will be recognized, raise their hand, and state their vote. Before we begin, I've got a couple other announcements. First off, tomorrow, the General Government Community Development is starting an hour early at 3:30. That's 3:30 on Tuesday tomorrow. If everybody please note that. And secondly, we're pulling C24 at the request of the staff, so C24 will not be considered here today. Also, just for your information, we will not be meeting in the month of July, so staff has pulled forward. As you notice, we have a lot of contract renewals today. These had to be done sometime in the next 45 days or so, so that's why we have an unusually number of items. I did pull the committee a half hour earlier today, thinking that we may have had some carryover from the budget meeting yesterday. We did not. The budget was finalized and will go in front of the City Council a week from today, but that's why we're meeting a little early. With that, we will start with the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would want pulled? And I'm going to pull C3. Mr. McIntosh, do you have any?
Nothing for me.
Ms. Adams?
C4.
C4? And Mr. Taylor?
None for me at this time.
If any of the other council members or mayor would like anything pulled, please speak now. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
I move for approval of the balance of the consent agenda.
Ms. Adams moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McIntosh. We will now have a vote on the consent agenda. If the city clerk will please poll the committee members.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, those are approved. We will now do the two that were pulled. We will start first with C3. If the clerk would please read that one.
Item C3, resolution accepting an North Carolina drinking water state revolving fund loan for the Neilson water treatment plant modernization project.
I'm going to call on Ms. Saunders, if she's out there.
I am.
If you could just comment on this, and I know we do this periodically, if you just
Yes.
kind of explain the program and what we're doing here today.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of the City Finance or the City Council. The resolution today is to accept a loan from the North Carolina Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan. As you recall, we have accepted several of these in the past. They're applied for annually, and they're only allocated to the state $20 million at a time. So prior to today's action, we'd actually accepted $60 million from the North Carolina State Revolving Loan Fund. This is an additional $20 million, which would bring us up to a re-amended amount of $80 million for a term of 20 years, 1.1% interest, and it was approved by Local Government Commission on May the 4th of 2021. These loans don't start they don't accrue interest over the construction period, so you generally don't start paying for them until about 18 months after the project is finished. I believe the budget on this project is $121 million. We've actually, council approved a few months ago another application that's in the process that we could receive in the future, additional $20 million. But for today, we're asking your approval for $80 million.
80 or 20?
80. Well, the re-amended loan is 80. It's an additional 20, but it brings us up to 80 million for the Neilson plant.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need. Is any of Ms. Adams? I see your hand go up.
Yes, and maybe I'm out in left field in the weeds. Is this the project that's presently being litigated or something with some people?
No, it's not.
Okay, thank
But Ms. Adams, you are correct. There is, I think, a previous project that's being discussed, let's say. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve this?
Move for approval.
We have a
Second.
second? We have a motion second. If the city clerk will please poll on C3.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye, that is approved. Folks, I've just been given a note that one of our council members was having audio trouble, but it's asked that C2, C14, and C23 be pulled. So I will pull those and we will go over those when we do finish the others. So I'm just going to keep going here. C4,
Item C4, resolution authorizing an application with the United States Department of Transportation for funding through the RAISE grant program and agreement with HDR Engineering of the Carolinas for the grant writing services.
Ms. Adams, you had a question or comment?
Yes, and maybe it was in the car. The amount of money, I think it was, of how much we've spent on the Long Branch Trail. I think all of our trails are good for the community, Chair Clark.
Mhm.
But the Long Branch Trail, it still seems to be one of those things that's on the north side, west side of 52, and not on the east side. I thought at first that the red part that we're talking about funding was going to be on the east side of 52, but it's not. I know we probably can't change this, but I need staff and everyone going forward that are applying for these grants on behalf of our city. We can't have all of the nice trails in the west side of town, in the south. We can't do that. It has to be distributed equitably. But that's the comment I wanted to make. I'm just, as they say, I see it that way. And again, I don't know. And what is the timeline for this trail? What is the timeline for it to start and to complete?
Assistant City Manager DeCane's got this one. Damon, you are.
Yes, sir, I'm here. Good
Go ahead.
afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, and members of the City Council. The scope of this project, this is just for the grant application, and it's to go from where the Long Branch Trail ends at MLK north up to 25th Street. Mr. Matthew Burchick, who has been working on this and helped prepare this item, is available to talk about what the potential timeline would be moving forward. So with that, I'll invite Mr. Burchick to continue with the response.
Thank you.
Mr. Burke?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Damon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Mayor Pro Tem, committee members and council members. So Damon's correct. This is the first step in this process. So we have, once we apply for this grant, we will have an idea of the funding available for construction. To this point, we have secured funding for preliminary engineering for this project through the MPO. So, once, we could begin that work, we could request authorization from NCDOT to begin that preliminary engineering work soon. But the grant application is due in July, so mid-July. And I'm not sure on the time frame of when we would actually hear back from USDOT on whether we were selected or not. But the preliminary engineering, that phase of the project would certainly last at least a year before we could have a design that we could go to construction with.
So at this point now, Mr. Burchick, we can't change the layout or the planned trail that's in the red. We can't change it. Am I correct?
That's correct. So what the corridor we would be using is the NCDOT rail corridor. So that's the corridor we would be paralleling and using that NCDOT rail right of way and putting the trail within that rail right of way. So that can be changed.
I would like to see if you could send the council and myself some information as to actual close up and personal where this trail, that red line runs, in particular our communities and what streets, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. And what we can do is highlight where, especially where there are at-grade crossings or bridge crossings of 52. And that's certainly one of the elements of this project, is to make sure that the trail is then connected to both sides of 52. So we can highlight those crossing locations as well.
And I'd like to see the projected, if we have it, layout of how this trail is winding through the northeast and the east and the north. Is that possible? Is that already laid out?
Well, the corridor that you see, that really is the extent of the Long Branch Trail Extension Project, that red line on the map there. But what we could do is show how this trail would connect with the rest of the urban trail network, including the Brushy Fork Greenway and the Salem Creek Greenway, and show how all of those trails are connected together throughout the community.
And I can see that from the handout, but I guess, again, what I'm asking is, how far does the Long Branch Trail extend? And if it doesn't extend past 25th Street, are you saying that it's connecting with the Brushy Fork Greenway? Or what?
So you're correct with the 25th Street is the extent of this project. And so this Long Branch Trail connects with the Salem Creek Greenway. And I know that the engineering department's working on a design for the connection of the Brushy Fork Greenway to the Salem Creek Greenway. So all that to say that the long-term vision, or fairly near-term vision, is to have all of these trails connected, kind of using the Salem Creek Greenway as the spine to connect the rest of the extensions off of it, including Brushy Fork and Long Branch.
Thank you, Mayor, Chair Clark, members of the council. I just want all of you to keep in mind as we move forward, particularly on these quality of life infrastructure pieces, such as the trails and the bike lanes and the parks and all of that, that we look strategically as we move forward, staking the ground this day as to where, just like we know that there are no parks in the Cleveland Avenue area and the northeast side of town, 25th, and those areas for Piedmont homes, that we now look at this, all of this, under a microscope to ensure that we plan intentional, equitable, quality of life spaces and infrastructure in all of the communities. Thank you, Mr. Bershika. I'm looking forward to getting that information. If there are no more questions or comments, Chair, I move for approval.
Okay, I'll hold tight. I do have a few, so just hold tight a minute. Mr. Larson had a comment. Mr. Larson, if you're out there, you're up.
Looks like he took your place, Rob.
Okay, I'm unmuted, but thank you. The question's been answered for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just real quick, Mr. Burchek, I think it would be helpful if you could give us a map that shows the ones that exist now, and maybe do it by feet or miles or however you measure pathways by ward. And secondly, how many more feet or miles we have to go. And I am aware that there are limitations because we have to go on right-of-ways and things of that sort. We just can't go through someone's yard. And I suspect you're ending at 25th Street because does the rail right-of-way end there?
It becomes an active line just north of there. So we lose our opportunity.
You wouldn't want to walk on the live train track. Anyway, if you could get that information for us, that would be helpful for everybody. Yeah. And just for the record, the West Ward has the fewest acres of parks in the city. Get that out there. Anyway, we have a motion. Do I have a second to approve?
That's because you got it in your backyard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, go ahead. C4. I need a second on C4.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve C4. If the city clerk will please read the agenda. Take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye, that is approved. I'm going to go back now and pick up C2. If the city clerk will please read C2.
Item C2, resolution authorizing a lease extension for the second floor in the Winston Mutual Building for the Police Department's Community Resources Unit.
Ms. Scipio, you're the one that asked for this. Do you have any specific questions on this one?
Yes, sir, Chairman Clark. And
You have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, you're loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few questions, and I apologize I didn't get these questions to the staff prior to today's meeting. My first question is, in the CARF, it says that we're at the Winston Mutual building because to make it more advantageous. I would very much like to know, since we've been there, what have been the advantages that we have seen by being located in the Winston Mutual building? The impact on the community, I'm assuming, is the reason why we're there being close. And it's the Community Resources Department. I would also like to know, in the CARF, it says they've outgrown the current space. I would like to know, how have they grown? Have they added new programs or more staff? And what are they doing? I'm not as familiar with Community Resources Division of the Police Department, so I just wanted to have a little more information on that. And the final question is it says the rental rate that's proposed is less than the current rate, but I'd like to know if the rental rate is below, at, or above market rate. So those are my three concerns, and I can get those answers after the meeting, after the committee.
Okay. Did that be fine just for information? We'll get those to you then because we've already voted on it. Okay, that's fine. The clerk will please read C14.
Item C14, a resolution awarding construction contract to EVO Corporation for lead dust removal services at the Joint Firearms Training Facility.
Ms. Scipio, your item again, please.
Yes, this one states that we have lead dust in this building. My recollection is that this is a fairly new building, and I wanted to know why we have lead dust in it.
Okay. Who would like to comment on that? I've got Mr. Johnny Taylor, are you out there?
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Chairman Clark, other members of the committee and council. To answer Councilmember Scipio's question, that is our joint firearms training facility, and the firing of the weapons in the process of training is what results in the residue of lead. So those individuals have to come through and clean that facility to make sure that it is safe for everyone inside the facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all?
For C14, yes.
Yeah, okay, C23 now.
Okay.
C23, resolution authorizing a negotiated settlement with Norfolk Southern Railway Company for acquisition related to the Brushy Ford Greenway Phase 4 project.
Ms. Scipio again, C23.
Yes. This is for an easement on Norfolk Southern for the Brushy Fork Greenway. And my question is, how much land is involved in that easement? Because it says our offer went from $3,175, and now we're looking at a settlement of $50,000. So I wanted to know how much land is involved in that easement, because the map shows not a whole lot of, I don't know where the railroad station is. I mean, the railroad line is. It doesn't look like a large amount of land, but I wanted to know that, as well as what is the actual cost, total cost of Phase 4 Greenway? So I know we've probably already approved that, but I'd like to just have that information.
Okay. And on all three of these, if the responses will be sent to all the council and the mayor, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thank you, Ms. Scipio. Since
Thank
we
you.
voted on them, and I think that was for information, we will stay where we were on those. We will now go to the general agenda. And we will start with G1. If the city clerk will please read this one.
Item G1, consideration of items relating to the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem, ordinance amending the annual appropriation and tax levy ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem, and ordinance amending the project budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem.
Ms. Tony, can you comment on what these items are, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Chairman Clark, and members of the committee and council. Before you is the kind of end of year. Each June, we do an end of year amendment and some technical adjustments. And so essentially, that's what this card is showing you. The first item, year-end adjustment, is related to our public assemblies facilities, where we initially thought we could use some coronavirus relief to subsidize our public assembly facilities due to the loss of revenue from canceled events from the fair in Bowman Gray. And so since we are not using that, we are doing appropriating $883,020 for our public assembly facilities. So that includes a transfer to the fairgrounds in the amount of $421,320 and $127,000 to Bowman Gray Stadium, and an additional $333,000 to the Benton Convention Center. And so this is actually a transfer from our general fund balance to cover public assembly facilities. There's also a technical adjustment, and this is to cover costs from our sanitation department. So we are transferring about a little over $1 million, and that's just due to overtime costs and increased fees, such as tipping fees, that we need to just shore up that department. And then lastly, I'll just mention community development. We received $7.4 million for the ERAP funds, which is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And we are appropriating the remainder, second round of that, which is $5.9 million, to be able to assist eligible households who need assistance with their rent payment.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on any of these? Ms. Adams?
Yes, Ms. Tony, on the transfer of the money for the environmental area, and that one, the $1,059,700.
Yes.
We're taking that money from general fund?
It is, yes. It's from our interdepartmental services area, but it is general fund money. So at ends of year, there's certain departments or areas that underspend. And so this is where we found additional money so that we can transfer to assist sanitation who overspent their budget.
Would not sanitation qualify for any COVID funds or anything? I mean, that's what I thought was going to happen, because their essential work is essential to the quality of life, health, safety. So the overtime, Mr. Garrity, Ms. Tony, Mr. Rao, Ms. Saunders, that money wouldn't have covered any of that?
Mr. Garrity would like to comment on that.
Yeah. Good evening, Chairman Clark, Member Tim Adams, Mayor Joins, Member of Council. I don't think we had to do a calculation, as Ms. Tony already said. Our total revenue, we did not have any revenue losses. Individually, we can use ARPA money for premiums and bonuses to employees, but we did not use any premium pay this current fiscal year. It was last fiscal year, if I recall right. So I don't believe we could use ARPA money to cover this overtime costs.
And I'm not talking about ARPA money. I'm talking about any COVID monies that we received, just like we received money for the transportation. I thought that any money we received monies also to cover these types of expenses for overtime of municipal employees, sanitation, things that we had to have because of people not being at work or whatever. No?
I will check. I don't think any of the things we got were eligible, but I will go check. I'll have Mr. Test and Mr. Rao look. I don't think it'll apply for this, but a lot of this was just a matter of, like, it was a lot of it's COVID related. I mean, the amount of tonnage that we collected in sanitation was up significantly because everybody was at home, as you know, and brush as well. But you got a good point. I'll find out for you.
Yeah, I think we need to check in on this one. And if not, we need to be, Ms. Garrity, Attorney Carmen, all of you, we need to be writing letters and contacting our federal legislatures and our advocacy group, and we need a better understanding, because while we were out collecting all this abundance of trash, because people were at home because of COVID, and the abundance of trees brush because people were at home, cut stuff they probably never cut for 30 years, but they needed mentally to do something, and they began to work on their properties and things like that. Mr. Chair, I mean, maybe I'm out of my lane or out my thinking, Mr. Chair.
I think it's a good question, and I think we need to put it on the list of things to check for the money we just recently received.
Yes.
I did want to comment. I happened to, my computer's acting up, go downtown this past Saturday for the ERAP program, and we had some things set up for folks to come in and help. It seemed to me, I was there about a half hour, to be very, very successful. In fact, the impression I got was we were going to have more people than we could help that day. But for what it's worth, I think it's something we should look at doing again very soon, because it just seemed to be very well received. With that, can I get a motion to approve the budget amendments that Ms. Tony just presented? This is G1.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve G1. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to second to approve G1. If the city clerk will please poll the committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, that is approved. We will now go to,
Mr.
yeah, go
Chair,
ahead.
I'd like to comment on our ERAP event that was held at the convention center as well. I went there after I left Councilmember Scipio's wonderful reboot of Happy Hill Garden Park. They told me that the people were wrapped around the building before it even opened.
Yep.
At 9 o'clock. And when I got there, the people were wrapped around the lobby of the Benton. All the chairs were full in that second room before you get to the big room, like COVID, where all the desks were around the wall.
What time were you there, Ms. Adams? Just curious.
Right after, anywhere between 11:15 and 11:30.
I had left before then. Okay, go ahead. Just curious.
I think just like you said, and I did comment to Ms. Newman and staff in the county, Grant Minix, everybody, I thanked them on behalf of the city. And I talked to the people in all three areas because they were a little weary. I asked Mr. Minix to bring some chairs for the folks and line them up like they had for COVID or anywhere else, because we didn't prepare for it. And as we all said, like you said, more people showed up. But the people showed up because I had a meeting last week, like 48, 72 hours before this event, that we stepped up our marketing, we stepped up our social media, we stepped up word of mouth and any other thing that we could do to let people know this event was going on, because that was one of the criticisms we got at the meeting from the community, that they just felt like we weren't really working to get the word out to people and making it accessible to them. As you said, Chairman Clark, we're not going to just do another event or more events at the Benton if we can, if the schedule allows us to. We also plan to do pop-ups throughout the council's awards. You need to let Ms. Newman and them and Mr. Rao and them know where you would like to have a pop-up. We're working with the county and DSS and some other agencies as well. And the people at the convention center, the customers, I begged them not to get frustrated with them, that we trying to fly a kite. We never flew this kite. And they laughed. I told them be patient with us, that we can learn to do this together. but I told them, don't give up on us and don't give up on the process, that we would want them to have what is due to them and what is owed to them. And they wanted, in their own way, wanted me to let you all know they appreciate the efforts that the city is making to make sure that they get this funding and resources. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to say that.
Thank you. Okay. We're up to G2 now. City Clerk will read that one.
Item G2, consideration of items relating to the multi-use path project. Resolution authorizing an agreement with North Carolina Department of Transportation for construction of the eastern section of the multi-use path project and ordinance amending the project budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem.
Mr. Kane, can you comment on this, please?
Yes, sir. I'll give a brief summary, and then if you have any additional questions, we'll have Mr. Burchick sign in. So good afternoon again, Chairman, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of committee and council. This is the agreement with the state to allow for us to enter into the construction phase of the multi-use path from Peters Creek Parkway over to the Strollway Bridge. This has been discussed in the past about what the plans were going to be in that area. And so the state is ready to move forward, and this agreement allows us to do so.
Okay. Is this just a matter of paperwork, or have we already qualified for it and all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Adams, is your hand up?
Yes, Mr. DeCane, Mr. Bursick, I read the CARF, and my only question is where it says the city's match of $400,000 and the balance of the funds needed for construction are available from Program 2018 bond funds, but then there was somewhere else where it said for other eligible project, somewhere it said in this CARF, and I don't know where I read it because I made a question. Is the committed amount from the city only $400,000, or are more funds going to be requested from the 2018 bonds or anywhere else?
Matthew, I'll let you take that.
Sure. So the local required match for the 1.6 million is the $400,000. And then the remainder of the funds to construct this phase of the project would come from the item. The item was specifically from the 2018 bonds. It was specifically for the construction of the MUP. So that's the location, the fund source for the rest of the funding that's needed to construct this phase.
So the $400,000 is coming from the 2018 bonds?
Correct. Yeah.
Do we know if, I don't know, do we know that is as they say, that's a solid request or commitment that we make, or are we going to have to make more contributions to this?
No, based on the cost estimates we have for construction of this phase and the NCDOT requirement, that $400,000 is the limit of that 20% local match. Once we receive the item goes out to bid, then we will know for sure. But based on the cost estimates we have, the funds that we have should be sufficient.
And Mr. Bursick, I'm not against it, and you too, Mr. DeCane. It's just that now we are into the mode of, more so like last year, we got to watch the piggy bank now. Not just now, but going forward. So when our projects come to us, and I'm going to ask council, do some due diligence, because there may not be any monies somewhere, and we can't raise the taxes. Once we vote on it, it's a done deal. So then we're going to have to figure out where the rest of the money is going to come from if we take on projects that we may feel like we may have to have a rainy day contingency fund or something like that. But thank you, Mr. Bursick, for all the work you do on making the trails and the bike lanes and bicycling and all that stuff. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, we have a couple other questions. Mr. Larson, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Mayor, members of the council. Basically following up on Mayor Pro Tem's question, the estimate was 3.287, I believe, for the project, and we've got 1.6 from the state million, and then 400,000 we're committing today is 2 million, leaves us about 1,287,000 short on the estimate. And I guess the real question ultimately is where that money is coming from.
Yes, sir. So the balance, that 1.2 million, is available from the 2018 bond, specifically for this project, for the multi-use path along.
So it's that 1.2 million, the difference plus the 400,000 we're talking about today.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's 1.8 or whatever. What was the total commitment in the bond project? Was that 2 million?
2.3, I want to say.
2.3 to cover the cost. So we have some room in there in case the bids come in high.
And that 2.3 also covers the local match for the western section. So we have federal funding for the western section as well, which isn't under consideration today, but that 2018 bond funding also covered the local match for that.
Do you anticipate when this might go out to bid?
You know, I don't know. So we still need to get construction authorization from NCDOT after we sign the agreement, which usually takes a couple of months. So I imagine it'll be several months, 4 or 5 months before we have authorization to go out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McIntosh, you had a comment?
That was my question as well. I was interested in timing on this.
Okay, I hope everybody heard that. It's going to be a little while. That's what I heard. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve G2?
Move
Motion to
for
approve.
approval.
Have a
Second.
motion by Adams, second by McIntosh. So City Clerk will please poll the committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, that is approved. Next item is G4. If the City Clerk will please read that. Excuse me, G3. I think I
Item
could count.
G3, resolution awarding construction contract for Haynes Park Phase 2 improvements to Bar Construction Company Incorporated.
Mr. DeCane, whoever you'd like to present this, please do.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Clark. I guess I'll throw a jump ball up for either Mr. Royston or Mr. Robert Prestwood.
I'll take it, Chairman.
You got it, Mr. Prestwood.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and member of the committee and City Council. This item is to approve a construction contract with Bar Construction for Phase 2 of Haynes Park. This phase includes rebuilding the hard surface and clay surface tennis courts, replacing the lighting at those courts. There's quite a bit of storm drainage work around those courts that also needs to be done. The side of the park that borders along West End Boulevard, we're going to be adding some walls similar to the ones that were installed with Phase 1 and some additional paths to kind of connect that part of the park with the rest of it. We're also going to be remodeling the restrooms in the Joe White Tennis Center. And there is a practice court that's going to be converted to pickleball courts. And then there's associated landscaping and site furniture to go along with all this work. I'll take any questions.
Mr. McIntosh, this is in your ward. Would you like to comment?
It is. I don't have any questions, but just to comment, this is really mostly going to be look and feel. In terms of change of use, the only use that will be changed is the hitting wall, which was very seldom used, is now going to be converted to a pickleball courts, which we know will get used because it's a very much loved pastime in the city. So I'm happy to see that. But the sort of design language will echo what was done on the western side. And I can't wait to get started on this. I think people really appreciated Phase 1. I think this will be well loved as well.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. McIntosh, to your point, I was accosted by a couple of people about the pickleball courts this past weekend. And they're very passionate about their sport. And they want us, and Chair, this is something Council, Community Development, we need to think of as staff. They want to see all our tennis courts transferred or mixed in with pickleball. And I kind of told them that ain't going to happen. Your sport is important, but there are a lot of tennis people, so I told them to call up the Winston-Salem Tennis Foundation, get with Haynes Park, Flex Tennis. They need to be talking to tennis folk about them intruding on their infrastructure. And I know that people have gotten into it hot and heavy the past, 10 years? But I think that's something we're going to look at. And I want us to do it strategically as a council, that we just don't flip. Whereas now we got those two groups at each other because we couldn't help decide where we wanted to put the pickleball courts and where we want to leave the tennis courts so that there's no conflict of interest. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just add, we are going to add some pickleball courts over at Christian Towers Park as well. So adding capacity as we can is a good thing, but it doesn't need to crowd out an already popular sport like tennis.
Yep, and this is not. Okay, can I get a motion to approve G3?
Motion to approve G3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve G3. If the city clerk please poll the committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, that is approved. The last item on the agenda is G4. If the city clerk will please read that.
Item G4, information on medical services request for proposal, results and recommendations.
Mr. Rao, I've got your name beside this one. If you will please introduce this, because this is not something we do very often.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, members of the City Council. The item before you today is an information item about proposed change in our health plan administrator provider, and I'm going to recognize Dr. Marcus Barnett, our Human Resources Director, who will present this item.
Mr. Barnett?
Good afternoon, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, Chair Clark, and the council. What you have before you today, and I'm going to ask Ms. Martin to start our presentation here. All right, thank you, Meredith. Slide. So the bid review panel for this bid it included myself, Lisa Saunders, who is our Chief Financial Officer, Deputy HR Director, Kimberly Ewing, and Senior HR Analyst, Tanisha Branch. Slide. And we received 5 total bids. And these came from Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's our current provider, Cigna, MedCost, and United Healthcare. So the locked criterion, which did not change at all, included our MWBE commitment and business location. Across each of these requirements, there are just certain scores that are provided. So these scores came to us from the Office of Business Inclusion and Advancement. When Business Inclusion and Advancement received this information in their office, they went ahead and scored these for us. So as you can see, out of a possible 10 points, Aetna received 5. So that was 5 for their MWBE commitment, and none of these proposers received anything for business location. So Blue Cross Blue Shield received no points. Cigna received 5 points for their commitment to MWBE, none for location. MedCost received 0 for their MWBE commitment, and United Healthcare received 5 points for their MWBE commitment. The other criterion we looked at were cost effectiveness, qualifications and experience, reference list, and proposal quality. So I know you all have had that in front of you, so I won't belabor this point. Meredith, if we can get the next slide. What we looked at with this was a big part of it was network disruption. And what we talk about when we say network disruption is there any amount or any percentage of our employees who could possibly be displaced from their current providers? Because of course, each provider's network is vastly different. So as we looked at this, Aetna had a market disruption of about 6.8%, Cigna's was 1.4%, MedCost was 2.1%, and United was 3.4%. So what those numbers mean is this is the possible percentage of providers that may be outside of the network that are currently in Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina's network. So this is a representative sample. Our benefits broker providers, Willis Towers Watson, they took their proprietary model to essentially pull out a specified number of these providers that are in our current network and looked at the networks that are provided by these other by each of the proposers. And so once they did that, they came back to us with these numbers to support. Now, down at the bottom, what you see is something that's called network discount relativity. So what that means is what percentage of each of these providers' discounts are going to continue to be offered based on the network that we have right now. And you'll see everyone was either right at or right below 1. Now, network relativity is not a perfect science. There is about a 1 to 2% margin of error. So each of our providers came out with pretty good scores where market relativity and network discount relativity is concerned. Slide. So on total costs, and again, I won't belabor this, but what we really looked at in terms of deciding on cost effectiveness, which one of these proposers would provide us with the best discount, if you will. We looked at total savings. So overall, looking at our current scores, so what we are currently paying out in our claims and our fees, what we're looking at for Blue Cross Blue Shield, they were able to offer us about an 11% discount off of our current fees. MedCost offered 9%, United and Aetna offered about a 14% discount, and Cigna kind of stood out in the clear front, offering 17% discount over where we are in our medical claims. That is found by their pre-negotiated rates. That also includes a lot of their pharmacy benefits and rebates that they offer. And a lot of it also came from essentially looking at the overall package that they were able to provide us with regards to their discounts and their in-network services. Slide. And so at the end of the process, when we looked at the providers and the number of points that each of these providers obtained, Cigna stood out with 400 points, 400 out of a possible 500 points. The next provider was Aetna. They received 325 points, followed by United Healthcare, who obtained 235 points. Blue Cross Blue Shield was fourth, and they're our current provider. They amassed 200 points, and MedCost received 142. And so our final recommendation to this committee, which will be coming to you all as an action item in August when we return, will be for us to go with Cigna as our provider for medical services. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick comment from the chair. The chair and vice chair of the finance committee, which is myself and Ms. Adams, sit in on this. I guess it's an ad hoc committee that reviews our medical stuff. And we were both, I think, very impressed with the Cigna proposal. With that, Ms. Scipio, you're up.
Are there any additional costs will the employees have to pay any additional costs for their health care in any area with this new provider?
That's a great question, Councilmember Scipio. I've been working with the city manager, and we will not be seeing an increase in our healthcare expenses as we move forward with any of these providers.
And Dr. Barnett, let them know the length of this contract.
It is a 3-year contract.
Thank you.
And actually, that's a very good point. The rate that we received from each of our proposers does come with a 3-year rate guarantee.
Okay, and it starts January the 1st?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a great job on the analysis. It's very, very well done. But just looking at the rating for local impact, I realize that Blue Cross Blue Shield is headquartered in Chapel Hill, but they do have a huge employment base here in Winston-Salem. So I just was wondering, shouldn't they have gotten some credit for that presence here?
Absolutely. So when there's Jakira, so when the team in business inclusion and advancement received these proposals, they assessed those points based on what is in the proposal. When we received our proposal from Blue Cross Blue Shield, they did not include any information to indicate their local footprint. They also didn't include any information to indicate their commitment to minority and women business enterprises. And so for those reasons, they were assessed 0 points, even though we know that they do have a local presence.
And Dr. Barnett, you should have mentioned, and I don't know whether you did, The county, tell them who the county and all of them got their insurance with.
For Forsyth County, let's see. So for Forsyth County, I believe, believe Forsyth County is with Cigna, or they just made a change to Cigna. So this is a move that some municipalities are making. We actually received a listing of 5 municipalities. We've got 3 in North Carolina. We've got 2 outside of North Carolina that are similarly sized, and they provided us with those references. Blue Cross did not provide us with any references. They let us know that if they were selected as the finalists, that they would provide us with some references. But in looking at those reference checks and going through all the information, we're looking at their administrative processes, their integration processes, getting feedback, and how it integrates with their current technology, how they take payments, the ease of any reimbursement, what their customer service experiences have been, what they're hearing from their employees. So we're focusing a lot on what is the administrative experience, but also what's the customer experience? How is the end user feeling generally about their experience with this healthcare provider?
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor,
if I can, my
go ahead.
question. I certainly hear what you're saying about the proposal didn't include it, but I mean, it's prima facie that this company has a huge impact on our community economically wise. And have they gotten back to you with any feedback in that regard when you let them know the rating on that?
As I understand it, no. And someone may be able to provide some additional information on that, but I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to echo what the mayor says. If I walk outside and it's raining, I don't get my cell phone out to see what the weather is. I go inside and get an umbrella. And there's a huge Blue Cross facility in this town. And I think it is disrespectful on the city's part that it did not even consider that because they didn't check a box on the form. And I'll just leave it at that. Ms. Adams.
Yes, just for the record, Chairman Clark and I did not vote, or we were not on the assessment committee.
That's correct, yeah.
We received the information from those who do this, from the staff and all of them in HR and everybody that does this, Ms. Saunders and all of the experts that look at the numbers, the values. And I know that there is some thought process that, oh yeah, they're the hometown person. They got people, but the bottom line is, like I communicated to Mr. Clark and the committee, for me, is what have you done for me lately and what can you do for me now? My employees, so far as the cost to the city, one of the things that we have to look at is the cost, people. Again, we're thinking in volumes that we can always do business as we've always done. And I'm not slanting Blue Cross, but if Blue Cross wanted this contract and they got it for 3 years based on the assessment we did, if you remember, Chairman Clark, 3 years ago, when we realized that there were issues and they corrected some of their process and their systems. But you got to keep up with today's customer demands. You got to be able to flex. You got to be able to do that. And I think the staff did a great job in this team on this assessment. I thank you for it. I know it wasn't easy. I know you guys wanted to see other numbers from other bidders. But for me and mine, I'm sticking with this one because Winston-Salem can't be the city, the reason that we go with a business and that they're here. And I'm not saying they're not doing their job, but I'm saying I'm glad I wasn't on the assessment committee. I think y'all did a great job. Thank you.
Ms. Scipio.
Just a quick question. Do our retirees who are not 65 and get Medicare, who 65 and older get Medicare, but are any of our younger retirees also having to deal with, do they get these benefits, these healthcare benefits?
Yes, ma'am. Pre-65 retirees are on our current open access and BPO plans.
And they have a different pay assessment than the active employees, I believe.
Yes.
Oh, it's different. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
This is Go ahead.
This is just for the active employees, this part that's been presented, or does it include those retirees also?
Includes everybody.
And therefore their benefits or their cost of benefits will not go up either. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Yes, I'm surprised too about Blue Cross Blue Shield, and since they've worked with us for the last number of years, and I can only account that they just let the ball drop maybe in not completing the form properly, or at least not communicating with staff as to what the requirements were. I do have a specific question though about on the total cost categories, the areas dealing with pharmacy projections and claim projections, what the criteria was for determining those projections. Seems to be a category that is a little more subjective maybe than the other ones that are pretty straightforward. How were those projections determined among the various contending companies?
So this was based off of the numbers that we received from each of the proposers. And when we received those numbers, we essentially benchmarked them against where our current claims are running. They provided us with a bit of information on why these numbers looked the way that they did. This included things like their pharmacy rebates. It also included their pre-contracted rates for certain services. So for example, a routine physical may be a different cost at a Cigna than it is at a Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so as part of this process, what we're looking at, and we've done this for both medical and dental, we are looking at some of the most common procedures and processes, seeing how much those claims will cost the plan, because a lot of these things are preventive services that the plan will cover at 100%. So just looking at all of those things. And so I think that the overall package just included greater discounts from the Cigna network.
Got it. So thank you. That clarified that.
This is for information only, or is there a motion needed here? Information only, okay.
Question.
Ms. Adams, go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Barnett, when do we have to vote on this? Because I know it starts January 1st, but any contract, but how long do we have? Because you've got to educate the employees and, do the marketing piece with them and ensure they're all signed up regardless of who we go with. And staff, we don't want to put you guys in a bad place because you haven't been in the building kind of sort of for over a year. And we want you all to be comfortable going forward with the new contract regardless of who it is.
So I've been working with city manager's office staff on a preliminary timeline. If we can get an action item to you all by the first meeting that you have in August, we should be prepared to roll with this and be ready during open enrollment to do all of the implementation, do all the audits that we need. And we've got a stellar team who has been working at making sure that we get all these things together. So I don't think we have any reason to believe that on that timeline, we wouldn't be able to get everything squared away and ready for annual enrollment and a January 1st implementation. We've been talking to Cigna. They have provided us with examples of other educational campaigns that they've undertaken for implementation. They have an implementation manager. They are also providing in their, as you may have seen on one of those slides, implementation funds that will help us in getting the word out and educating our employees. And another part of that, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier, is that if there is a provider that's out of network, there will be a period of time where our employees can provide that provider's name to Cigna, and Cigna will undergo a massive campaign to get those providers into their network. So it'll leave us about a 3-month process, but I think we can do it all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. McIntosh.
Yeah, Dr. Barnett, I think you just touched on the question that I was going to ask, but there's a certain amount of brain damage that's going to occur shifting from one complicated system to another complicated system. And it sounds like you folks have taken into account and researched a bit what the capacity or the capabilities are of Cigna to onboard all of our people. And we want that obviously to be as seamless as possible. So from my vantage point here and listening to you talk and looking at at your presentation, it seems like there has been care and thought that has gone into that process as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have one more quick item. Is Ms. Pridgeon Green from the attorney's office online?
Yes, I am, Chair.
There you go. I'm going to introduce you. So, and welcome you to the Finance Committee and to the City of Winston-Salem. Ms. Green has just started in the attorney's office, and hang on a minute, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's the newest assistant city attorney, and she'll be working with police, fire, and emergency management. So welcome aboard. And I do want to assure you that we are actually real people, and someday you will see us all. We're bigger than 2 inches tall, is what you think. But anyway, welcome aboard, and things hopefully will start to get back to normal in August, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else to bring before the committee today? If not, remember tomorrow at General Government is at 3:30. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank all y'all for being here.